Hello, everyone. I always have the tendency to say happy Sabbath, but we're here for a different reason. Well, I'd like to welcome you all here for our 2023 Town Hall meeting. I'm just going to open up with prayer, and we're just going to go ahead and get things started. So let's bow our heads. Dear Father, Lord, we thank you so much that you are first and foremost a good God, and we thank you for the time that we have right now to come together and look over some information, look over some of the decisions that were made, have a conversation, and just figure out how things move forward together. So, Lord, bless the conversations that happen here tonight. Bless the presentation, bless the speakers, the administration, every part of the process, Lord, and just be with us as we continue to be your church and forward your mission. All these things I pray in your name, amen.
Thank you, Marvine. Is it possible to have that screen on in the back as well? It's not possible. All right, so that means I have to, if I stand right there, I can catch the glare off of it and see what's behind me. I want to thank you for coming out this evening. One of the things that I said when I was asked to serve in this role to the Executive Committee is, to the best of my ability, there will be no secrets and no surprises. I don't like them personally to be caught off guard, and I don't believe that most of us like that as well. And so as we are endeavoring to try to deal with things that face our conference, I want you, our constituency, to understand to the best of our ability what has transpired and what is coming next. For quite some time now, we have been looking to try to find a way to make sure we can find a positive path forward when it comes to our school. And I'm going to use that phrase repeatedly because it is our school. It's not the school. It's not my school. I don't pay for all of it. Whether you have students there or not, it is an important part of the ministry and mission of the Dakota Conference. Has been for a long time, and my wish is that it continues to be for a long time. I will share some of the things that we're doing to endeavor to make sure that's the case, as well as some of the speed bumps, hiccups, and challenges moving forward. Because nothing in life, at least in my life, comes easily. Is that how it is for you? Does everything come easily? Most things that you find value in takes effort to make sure that that value is maintained and sustained. And so this evening, our purpose is very simple. I'm going to explain what has happened since we met together a few months ago and how we're endeavoring to find path forward. And my goal is, we're going to be here about 1 hour is all, because there's not a lot to share, but there's some important steps. And the reason for this, I'm already hearing various stories about what's going on, kind of insider information that some people seem to have. Well, there isn't any secret insider information. There is a group of people chosen by this constituency, our executive committee, who've been wrestling for 12 months, our K-12 board for 24 months, trying to find a path forward. But so that there isn't misunderstanding, this is where we're going to endeavor to give all that we can to explain how we got to this point. And so here are the steps that we were tasked with addressing. On November 6th, there was a joint meeting with our K-12 board and our executive committee. It was at the academy. It was open. There were a number of students who joined to listen, because the process by which we go about dealing with issues should not be hidden. There's no backroom maneuverings. There's no secret handshakes. There's no insider group. And our executive committee is actually a group that's tasked with dealing with challenges, but we invited K-12 to join. And by that point in time, with all the work that we had done, there's only 3 options that seemed to be viable. Now, don't misunderstand, there are other things that could be done. And a recent graduate from DAA, he contacted one of our executive committee members. He had a whole long list of what if, what about, and all of those have value, but it's incremental when it comes to the amount of money they may provide. And when we're looking at being AT&T, but we got a short on this, it feels like, that we can afford to pay staff A few dollars is not sufficient. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars. And while we could work towards something, there is no suggestion that anyone has made that would generate that sort of revenue stream on a short term. But we looked at all of those. So all said and done, there's only three things that could be considered. Sell assets. The conference does have assets that we can sell. And that was looked at, and it was pretty fascinating. In fact, across the conference, the number of times that people have said, sell other assets as long as it's not academy-related assets. I still have people, just a couple weeks ago in a church that I was visiting, very insistent that we should have sold the conference office and operated from someplace inside the academy. Where that place was, they did not know, but it did not matter. There's rooms. Surely they can be used for some sort of academy operation, conference operation. Not exactly the most conducive element. Someone suggested that we convert what I don't even know where it's at, have not been there, the B shed, which is a storage unit, turn that into the conference office. I don't know what its condition is, but when I have mentioned that to people who do know, the amount of money to get it up to snuff would be cost prohibitive. So those have all been looked at. Reduce our expenses. It is possible to continue to run the conference, but we'd have to seriously reduce the amount of money being spent. And the academy cannot, it's the number of employees necessary to balance budget with that alone. It's not doable. We're looking at between 7 and 10 FTEs across the conference, which means most of those would come from our pastoral staff and out of the office. The challenge of that is we are retracting on the very mission that advances us, and it seems like the beginning of the end of the Dakota Conference. Or we close the school. Those are the only options that seem to be on the table, and that was what was being discussed at that meeting. The challenge is closing is we have a constitutional obligation to run the school. It would take 75% of our constituents. No, switch it out? Okay. Okay, we'll try that. Thank you, John. Okay. It would take 75% of our constituents to vote to cease operations. I'm not a prophet or the son of a prophet, but I do not believe, as things are currently configured, that we would ever get that vote in the way things are right now. That day may come, but that's not this day. And so unless we have that vote taken at a constituency session, we are going to be running a school by whatever means necessary. After a lot of deliberation on that day, there was a motion made to take the option of closing the school off the table. Season of prayer, discussion, and a vote was taken. I was surprised at the vote numbers, because between our K-12 board and our executive committee, the vote was 18-8 to remove that option. Now understand what that means. That's about a third of our decision-making people don't want to remove that option. 2/3 want to remove that option. Well, it just took a simple majority, but it was an indicator that there is a growing perception across our constituency that we may have run our course. But that's off the table. Well, if we are going to indeed be running a school, we now have to be able to fund that. And as I have been sharing across the conference, the decisions that have been made in the process, I am encountering two different realities that have no middle ground. I've had people talk to me. We are going to run a school until we have nothing left to run it with. It's non-negotiable. We will spend every dime we have to keep the school going. We have those people in our midst. I appreciate their passion and their zeal. There's another group of people who are saying maybe it's time to say enough is enough. Not very far from us, there's a lot of conferences that have begun closing schools. It's happening. I don't like that, but that's decisions that are being made. And today, I received a letter from an individual who has been very involved with conference life. He is well respected. I'm not going to give his name, but I talked to him, and I got permission to share some highlights from his letter. He's not going to be able to at the town hall that's scheduled for his area. It appears you've already decided what you're going to do, so why bother? And I share with him, the reason is to alleviate any misunderstandings or misperceptions. He also talked about how much money the land sale might provide, and what do you do when it's gone? We're going to address that before we're done. And if we're just going to close in the future anyway, why not just admit it now and cut our losses? I talked to him at great length. I have permission to share his letter, and much of it I do agree with. I will not stand here tonight and say that the process we're on is a guaranteed solution. But it does guarantee that for the next 5 to 7 years, if we do nothing differently, at least people know how to plan. And our staff has struggled with knowing how to plan. Families have struggled with knowing how to plan. And there is a process we're trying to put together so that it's not the same reality 5 to 7 years from right now. That's my goal. I do not want to have to just kick this down the road for someone else to deal with. We're going to try to find a solution. If we don't, we'll have given it our best shot. And I shared that with that individual. So now that we've determined that we don't want to close the school, how do we fund it? We looked at various options, and there was a straw poll, and we've shared all this, to sell some of the land around the school. That straw poll was 15-9. I have since discovered that twice before we've sold land around the school. I did not know that until last week. Once in 1999 and once in 2003. Not as much as we're talking about right now, but we have done it in the past. When we met that day with our joint meeting, Gary Thurber, our union president, he strongly recommended calling a special constituency session for a decision of this magnitude. And that was something that was taken into consideration. Then a motion was made, since we're not prepared on that day, let the executive committee deal with how to solve this problem when they met a month later. And we dismissed. That was in November. Immediately following that, there were some steps that were made. First of all, on that following Monday, November 7th, I met with the DAA staff to let them know what had been decided, because they need assurances. What will next year be? And there was a strong concern that I have, and they have as well. If we don't know what tomorrow is going to be like, will we be here for that tomorrow? So, we wanted them to be informed. And for a few minutes, also had a chance to meet with the students that day, but they had more questions than time available. So the next day, I came back and met with the student body on November 8th and kept them informed. They had a lot of good questions about process and what's involved. And we want to provide, and I shared with them, yes, we voted to keep the school open. We haven't said how we're going to fund this. That's the challenge. And the Dakota Conference cannot continue to write blank checks. I'll share with you why in just a few moments. One thing that has been done, and I am very pleased with this, is we've been asking our constituency step up and help above and beyond. The Circle of Faith endeavor that was talked about has been addressed. I want to thank Robin Wise for his involvement. He met with a number of people at camp meeting. We've continued to talk about it. Krista Brunn has been involved with asking individuals, this $10. We need people stepping up. We had pledges for 2022 of $125,000. As of today, there's $158,000 that came in. So I want to say thank you to our constituency for not just saying, I think I'll give, but for actually doing it. And that's above and beyond what they're giving to everywhere else. So that with the students. Following that, we sat down and met with the Piper Auction Company. Because if we're indeed going to sell land, what are we looking at? This is a land sale company. They specialize here in the Dakotas. And we met with them initially to find out what it is. Kevin Piper came to our office. In fact, we're meeting with him again next Monday on some additional details. The initial estimate that he gave is that valuations on what we have would be about $3.5 million. A little later, he came back in and said, no, it's probably worth more like $4 million. And if he gets into a bidding war with people who live right there in the area, it might be more than that. But based on what acreage sale and the various types of properties from cropland to dryland farmland to grazing land on the acreage that we have, this is the estimate, and we would have the right to say, here's the minimum we will take. And if it doesn't hit that, we don't have to sell. If we'd have a choice on that. But we have been in touch with him. We have not signed any contracts. We're having discussion, negotiation with that. And we are trying to find the best utilization for this asset. We did that because we need to be able to share with our executive committee what comes next. And so on December 11, we met with our executive committee to finalize details. If we're indeed going to keep going forward, what should we do? And the decision was made that we are going to sell about 850 acres around the school. We have just under 1,200 acres. No, 950 acres, excuse me. And there are several concerns that led to this decision to sell the land. First and foremost, we want to give the staff the assurance of next year, our parents an assurance of next year, because that unknown, but as we were deliberating, and we were there for about 6 hours that Sunday, talking through all the potential ramifications. But one of the executive committee members brought up something, what if we call for a special session, which we were prepared to do. We had the timelines lined out. We'd contacted pastors what the time frame would be over Christmas break. We'd have had to have names and delegate lists so that early January that gets out. We'd have been scheduling for early February a special session. One of our executive members brought up my fear, which had been plaguing my thoughts for several weeks. What if we call a session and people vote no? What do we do then? That's the dilemma. We're obligated to run a school, and we have no funds to do it. That's where it gets personal. That means people are going to start losing jobs. There's just no other way. And so as a result of that, and here is where our financial picture is. I want to show you what was given to our executive committee on December meeting. Can you see the number that's a little bigger, surrounded in purple? Financial reports are typically not things that most of us want to read. But you have to show what is, so you know how to plan and prepare. That number, 0.27, is the amount of operational reserves that we would have as a conference to operate if not one more dime came in. As of September 30, 0.27 is equivalent of 1 week. Because 1 is a month, and we are aiming to get to 6 months of operational reserve. We were at 1 week. To make payroll, we had to cash in investments. That's the position we have gotten to because of the unquestioned and continual commitment to operating a school. we can't continue on. We don't have it to give. And so if there aren't funds to plan and provide for next year, we're over a barrel this year. How do we proceed? And so that's why I can't guarantee anymore. That's where we're at. Now, we don't know how the year will end. The best October that I'm aware of when it comes to giving was 2022. The best November was 2022. Our conference has been very faithful. We are consistently in the top giving percentages when it comes per capita in our division. You are a faithful people. But are we using the funds entrusted to us in a fair and responsible way? There's a lot of other things we just have not been able to do because it's all gone one direction. And so that was what we were faced with. There we go. And so after discussion, there was a motion made to call for a special session. With our Constitution, which we have to operate by, those are our guiding principles. It takes a 2/3 vote of our executive committee to call for a special session. The motion was made, seconded, discussion, season of prayer, secret ballot, and it was a tie. The same number of votes for as against. Not interested in calling a special session. So here we are, still trying to find a way forward without necessarily finding the right path. One of the members there shared at that juncture that they had come prepared to that meeting to argue in favor of ceasing operation. And they wanted to look to find some information to buttress their claims, and instead found a statement that Ellen White had written that our schools are vital to our future. I've asked that person to find that quote and share it with me. They can't find it again. But they read it that day. And we must do all that we can to ensure their continuation, which has been my goal. I know there's rumor out there that my job or my wish is to kill the school. No, I don't want to kill the conference or the school. We got to find a better path. And so that's when the discussion turned. What does our Constitution say when it comes to who has authority to deal with property issues? And so we pulled out and looked at the corporation board. I guess it would be their constitution. And you have to understand how this works. The corporation is the legal entity that has ownership of all of our properties, camps, churches. They have the responsibility legally to care for all of that. Executive committee is dealing with operations, but not this. So you keep those two separate. I have a copy of this here, and the corporation is formed for this purpose. It's an integral part of the Adventist Church to advance its ministries, which includes pastoral, teaching, literature, health. It holds title to all properties. It owns the real property, including farms, lands, buildings, schools, churches, clinics. It owns it all. And then on the next page, the corporation has the authority to pledge, encumber, sell, convey any and all property, personal, real, mixed, tangible, intangible, and have authority to do things incidental for the purpose of advancing the mission and ministry of the Dakota Conference. It was recommended that our corporation board then recuse themselves. They met in my office and began to talk about what might be next. If they have the authority to sell land, so what would that look like? And so they voted unanimously to sell about 850 acres, and here's what it looks like. This is a plot map of the area around the school. The parts that are in yellow are what we are currently renting out. It's different types of usage. There is a pivot that has water, which makes it very valuable. There is some dry land, farmland, has different valuations, and there's some land that's used for grazing cattle, including in the part that's blue or green that's around Academy land. If you see the little red line, that is the driveway in, the circle around the school, the Academy housing. There is still approximately a half section of land untouched by this. It's mostly land to the north, and it's land to the west of 1804. There is one little parcel that where the red line and the bottom green line, if you were to go straight north, that would be a full half section. So there's a little wedge that needs to be deeded from one parcel to another parcel as a part of sale, because there's no reason to keep one little wedge to the west of 1804. And so that was what was decided, voted, and it was unanimous, brought to executive committee. And that is about 850 total acres, and 250 still around the school. It's what has been proposed. This was shared with our executive committee, and it was recommended that we indeed share with our constituency various ways. The process has been both in writing. We'd hope to do something via video. It's actually being recorded this evening before Christmas break, but does anybody remember what happened weather-wise mid to late December? We could get down our driveway, but we couldn't get down the road. I'm not sure we're the only ones that face that. And so one of the discussions that was held by the corporation board that is ongoing. So we sell land. How do we make sure we're not in the same position 5 to 7 years from right now? There will be a group of people that will be tasked with looking how to address that. We'll be meeting with our executive committee, bring a proposal to them on February 13, so that we are indeed endeavoring to protect the lion's share of this asset. Now, some of these funds are going to have to be used for operation till we get a better footing. But there will be a portion of these immediately put into an interest-bearing account, invested to the best of our ability, and try to grow it. My goal is that we have an actual endowment fund that is not touchable, that would be $10 million, which would generate approximately $500,000 a year toward the school, which between tuition, conference appropriation, the regular alumni giving, and that would cover for our future. And that's what I'm going to be working toward. And I could in good conscience ask people, help us grow an endowment fund. But I'm not real comfortable saying, help us pay salary. End result's the same, but if we can't get our operational reality cared for, people wonder, why bother? Whether we succeed or not, I don't know. But that is indeed what we're endeavoring to do. I want to share this because all the stories, all the rumors, all this stuff, 2 weeks ago, the church I was in, they'd heard all kinds of things. It's interesting, no one will tell me who they heard them from, but they've heard things. Our executive committee is trying to act very responsibly. Our staff needs to know how they can plan. Our families need that as well. And I want there to be a school for our future. That's what we're endeavoring to do. But we cannot fund it the way we've done it, or there will not be a Dakota Conference. At this point in time, go open it up. Any questions?